Okay, good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started on this class. I'm super excited, like I've expressed over and over, about doing this Candida class. It kind of speaks directly to my heart and just how we've seen the impacts of it in our family. So making people aware is my number one goal, of just knowing what's out there and what people don't realize, and what the doctors may or may not always tell us, or maybe it's kind of talking over our head. I'm not a doctor. I did not go to medical school. I tend to liken things in my brain, maybe more on a little bit elementary level. So I may use big words, but then I'll come back and explain it to you in a way that I kind of understand, and hopefully it'll help you guys understand it a little bit better as well. If you have questions, you can feel free to send them on the chat option on here, or at the end, we will try and see if we can field them. My personal experience with Candida has kind of evolved over my time. I started using essential oils and kind of becoming more health conscious in about 2011. I started juicing and exercising a lot more and using essential oils to take care of my family. With that, also just continued growing in my knowledge of health. In 2012, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and continued to take healthy precautions in my family and for myself. And once I finished chemotherapy, just kind of repairing my body and bringing it back to a healthier state became a really huge goal for myself. I noticed a lot of change, damage, impact, so to speak, from chemotherapy on my digestive system in particular. And so gaining more and more knowledge about this became, essential in helping my body to repair. I attended a class at one point by Dr. Stu Lawton. It was talking about happy colon, happy brain. And one of the things that people don't realize is that 80% of your immune system is actually located in your digestive tract, making your health of your gut actually a necessary focal point in creating optimal health. So you really need to make sure that your digestive system is healthy so that you can continue to improve your health. And it impacts your brain, and we're going to get all into that even more. But 80% of it is gut health. So as much as you would like to think that, in trying to become healthy or having a healthy immune system, is, just by, watching out for germs, you need to really take a chance to look at your digestive health. I kind of also find it terribly ironic that in November and December is when a lot of people tend to get sick, right? Our immune system is weakened. We know that we get less sleep, and we get more stressed out with the holidays. But also look at what our diet is containing during these 2 months. We're dealing with a lot of holiday meals and junk food and sugars and all of that. And so our digestive system really gets out of whack during these 2 months. And with 80% of our digestive system impacting our immune system, you have to look at what you're eating and during these 2 months. So I thought it was a fairly timely issue to bring up right now before the holidays. So I'm going to pull up I'm going to share my screen really quick and bring up the presentation. 1 second. One of the big things that came about in my experience with Candida was watching how Candida actually affected one of my children. And in particular, watching how the various symptoms evolved and then how it impacted him both mentally, emotionally, and physically. And so we'll allude to that as we move throughout this presentation. But one of the disclaimers I just wanted to discuss again is, this is strictly for educational purposes. I'm not here to diagnose or prescribe anything. I think I'm a firm believer that we know our bodies very well. especially we as mothers, a lot of time know what's going on with our children quite often because we're seeing it every day, and we can see all of the picture instead of one particular symptom. So if you need any further questions, I would encourage you to go to a doctor or continue to seek out medical treatment if you feel. Everything that I'm talking about in here is not evaluated by the FDA. And I'm not trying to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease, just trying to educate you basically. So let's talk about what is Candida. So Candida actually is normally harmless. It's a single-celled fungus that naturally is in your intestinal digestive tract. Okay, and it actually is always there in small amounts, and it's very integral in what it's needed to be there for. We all kind of know if there's fungi exists everywhere, right? We come in contact with things, whether we touch it in the air, we breathe it, but fungi in the correct balance with good bacteria is helpful to digestion. And it actually helps to synthesize the vitamins and enzymes, because the idea of having a fungus in your belly can kind of be a little disturbing, but we need to understand that we have to have this to help digest our food, synthesize the vitamins and the enzymes in our body. When it overgrows, however, it becomes parasitic, and it can take root in tissues. And in the mycelial form, you can see on this slide, in comparison to the slide we were looking at earlier, these ones have little tails on them, and they've started to take root into the tissues. This means that there's going to start to have chronic inflammation. This contributes in turn to degenerative diseases and other multiple health problems, which we're going to go over in a little bit. It's estimated actually that 80% of all Americans suffer with chronic Candida. When I heard this statistic, I was actually in awe, and it really stuck with me to the point where I started to really watch the different symptoms and kind of put together a complete puzzle. So you may be sitting here going, well, am I affected by Candida? Now remember, what we're talking about is not, do you have Candida? Because everybody has Candida, because we're supposed to digest our food. The question is, are you suffering from an overgrowth of Candida? And most men, women, and children actually are affected. And ironically, women are 8 times more likely to have Candida overgrowth. 8 times. Okay, so what causes Candida overgrowth? We know that we naturally have it in our system. So there can be a number of things that can actually trigger it to grow and take over the body. One of the things is immune dysfunction. So exposure to toxic metals. We don't even realize a lot of times where those toxic metals come from and how many are in our food and things like that. But exposure to toxic metals and internal toxins from poor digestion. Now, this actually was a little mind-boggling when you think about Candida in your body. When it becomes like overgrown, it needs to eat like any bacteria or fungus, right? To survive, it needs to eat. And so it starts to actually consume your nutrients, and it oxidizes the fatty acids that you have. And a lot of times those fatty acids are the essential fatty acids that you need for your brain and things like that. So this is not a good thing that it's oxidizing the fatty acids. We see that fat and think, oh good, eat the fat, but that's not the case. It's actually oxidizing the essential ones. And what it does is it leaves nasty toxins in their place. So what we don't understand is when you have an overgrowth of Candida, it in turn creates your body to be more toxic. Just by having that. So you don't need to be sitting there sucking on mercury lozenges. Just by the fact that you have an overgrowth of Candida, it is in turn creating your body to become more and more toxic. And the last one with immune dysfunction, we know, like we discussed earlier with the holidays and stress and things like that, how much it can break down our immune system and really create it to get out of whack or dysfunctional. Okay, this one is pretty common knowledge. What causes Candida overgrowth? A lot of times people go to the yeast factor. Well, it's a yeast in your body. So the yeast in breads and things like that would just contribute to it, right? Um, that is a true statement. However, you have to look a little farther outside of the bread family. So not only is bread, but any other refined carbohydrates. Actually, alcohol feeds the bacteria of Candida and it causes it to grow. Now, what that does actually by causing the Candida to grow is the good bacteria, the good flora that we have in our belly, actually gets reduced. It gets crowded out, so to speak. So the alcohol, caffeine, breads, and other refined carbohydrates, sugar. Obviously, when we make bread and with yeast, a lot of times we have to add sugar in the recipe. So that helps the yeast to grow and start to bubble and fester so that the bread will rise. That is the same way that it works in our body. The more sugar we feed our body, the more that Candida can grow and become really problematic. Some other ways that are the good bacteria in our belly can actually be impacted is by mushrooms. Mushrooms are a fungi species, and they can actually increase the fungal population in the gut. And I mean, it's not necessarily helping the positive good bacteria that we have in there. Sushi actually can introduce infection of other parasitic organisms. And we discussed alcohol. Now, one of the things I want you to understand, though, is even though these things are not deadly and they are healthy in a lot of ways, it is just being conscious and aware of when you eat them, and is your body already struggling to balance Candida overgrowth, and is your diet healthy to be able to take kind of take over and balance this out. If you already are in an imbalance, it might be just like distressful to your body to balance this out and to maintain proper bacterial growth in your body. So what causes Candida overgrowth is even more so antibiotics. Antibiotics kill all the good bacteria. We know that a lot of times when we've been on a really harsh level of antibiotics for a period of time, the doctor will suggest that we take a probiotic to help put the good flora or the good bacteria back in our bellies. I wish that I knew about Candida and other natural options when my daughter was young. When she was first 2 weeks old, she actually spiked a fever, and we went to the emergency room to find out that she had a urinary tract infection due to kidney reflux, and that for the whole first year of her life, we had to have her on antibiotics. It created a huge imbalance in her belly and actually created issues with, her urine and the acidity of her body, and just, it was horrible. It was horrible for her. It was horrible for us to watch that and just feel so helpless. Just one more reason that I really want to educate people so they understand how the antibiotics can affect the body. Now, I'm not saying don't take them, but I'm saying understand what they do to your body so that you can go ahead and counteract that after, like putting a probiotic in. Also, I would like you to understand that there is other options out there that are natural options that will not kill the good flora in your belly, such as essential oils. Okay, so immunosuppressive drugs such as chemotherapy, steroids, we hear a lot of people, particularly around allergy season, that are going to get Kenalog shots or steroid shots or things like that. A lot of women, as they're progressing in age, find that they have to take estrogen or progesterone, the xenoestrogens, any of those type of things, and even birth control pills. Those are all immunosuppressive drugs, and they impact how your body is naturally functioning. And so in doing that, those can actually create an opportunity for the Candida to overgrow and take over the body. Remember earlier we talked about having exposure to toxic metals. Many of us in our younger years got mercury fillings into our teeth. It kind of blew my mind to discover this. And as I got older, my dentist was replacing fillings, and I never understood why until learning this. He was replacing out my mercury fillings with more of a healthier one to actually protect my body. The mercury fillings can actually create an antibiotic effect in your body. So again, it creates an opportunity for the good bacteria to be overcrowded and reduced in your digestive tract. Okay, so if your intestinal pH, now this is something that kind of rings home for me as I continue to keep my body balanced and be aware and conscious of my pH in my body, because we know that typical pHs or acidity levels in bodies are more prone to cancer. So I kind of watch where my pH level is, and your pH level can be impacted by a number of things. One of the things is that taking a Prilosec or a Tums or anything that's going to, create the creation of acid in your digestive tract. It actually ends up blocking the absorption of iron, B6, folate, and zinc. And zinc is really critical for your normal cellular immunity. Now, again, my third grade brain tells me for cellular immunity and what is cancer? Cancer is damaged cells. So zinc is critical for that, and you're taking something that it could be impacting the health of your cells and their ability to fight off any dangers. Also, these two type of medications, over-the-counter medications, decrease your digestive enzymes. And we're going to talk about that. If we have time, we'll talk about in this one. If not, we'll do another training about them. But from what I've learned about digestive enzymes, I really wish people understood them and how they impact and that there is a chain effect in your body as it tries to balance out how it needs to function, what it needs to function, and what you're actually feeding it. It also decreases the HCl acid as we age. So this is something that we need to understand, that when you're taking these things, it's not just going to have an impact on you right at that second. We tend to think very present, immediate gratification. This is going to help me feel better right now. But there is an impact as you age that these are going to create in your body as well. You can see on this chart that your stomach acidity is actually different than your esophagus and your small intestine acidity levels of what is considered normal. We know that we have stomach acid, and there is a reason for it. So the acidity for your stomach should be at a higher acidity level, but the rest of your belly needs to be at a little bit more neutral level. We don't want them rising too high, or it creates an inability for them to function naturally and healthy. Okay, so this page I am actually gonna leave up for a minute. I think for me, this became very surreal. This was when I sat down and was trying to determine what was creating some issues for my son. He was having dramatic mood swings. He was 1 minute happy, 1 minute sad, the next minute angry as all get out. I did never in my wildest dreams did I ever tie it to Candida. But when you go through this whole list and you start to go, yes, there's this symptom, yes, there's this symptom, yes, there's this symptom, you can kind of put together the pieces of the puzzle. For me, the frustrating part was a lot of us sit and look at these various symptoms and we deal with just that symptom. We're taking just that piece of the puzzle and maybe we're just trying to kibosh it, right? We're just trying to squash it. So we get yeast infections, we will go take a yeast infection over the counter and try to get that taken care of. We have allergies, we take allergy pills. We suffer from digestive issues, whether it's constipation or diarrhea, we will turn around and take over-the-counter medications or natural things to counteract that. Sinus issues, that's really common along with asthma and allergies and things like that we will counteract one at a time. But again, as you sit and look at all of these symptoms, and you can sit there and go, Yes, I have this. Yes, I have this. Yes, I have that. It allows for you to see that the pieces of the puzzle come together, and the idea that you could potentially have an overgrowth of Candida creating an imbalance in your body. When I did that for my son, he had the mood swings, as I talked about. He had athlete's foot, and he was actually getting rashes around his belly button, as well as in his groin area. It allowed for me to piece the puzzles together and look at this and go, he has rashes, he has athlete's foot, he has, the depression and the emotional problems, really irritable, quick anger, all of those things. I immediately went to the doctor, and I asked him to test him for Candida. Now, I want you to understand, not every doctor would sit and look at any of these symptoms and immediately look to Candida. Again, it's putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So if you are going to the doctor for migraines, they're going to treat the migraine. If you're going to the doctor and explaining, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this, you are able to piece the puzzle together for them. So your knowledge in understanding all of the potential symptoms for this is key for the doctor being able to help you best. On this instance, I went to the doctor and I said, I would like to test my son for Candida. And he actually said there was no test for Candida, which I immediately said, I don't believe that. So I actually went down to a naturopath doctor, and they took some blood from my son and came back to the fact that there was, in fact, an overgrowth of Candida. So much so that it was creating a hormonal imbalance in his brain and throwing all of those off, which is what was creating the emotional problems. Having confirmation of that allowed for me to take action in how we could create an area or a program, procedures of kind of keeping the Candida controlled and not letting the overgrowth get too far out of hand. One of the things that I like to point out on here is that Candida, because we talked about how it releases toxins into the bloodstream, right? That's what's causing your chronic inflammation, right? We actually, my children and I watched one of those crazy, you'll never believe this kind of shows. And it was talking about a gentleman who, without ever drinking, was acting very drunk. Without ever drinking any alcohol, I should clarify, he was acting like he was inebriated. What was actually happening in his body was something called autobrewery syndrome. Because the Candida creates that toxic waste called acetaldehyde. It's a little tongue twister unless you slow down and say it. It actually ends up affecting the nervous system, which we know is impacted just like the same as when you're drinking. Your nervous system becomes impaired. This same syndrome and this toxic waste also interferes with your hormone imbalance, like I was explaining with my son. It affects the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the adrenal gland, and it actually creates an increase in your blood alcohol levels. So you could be having an increased blood alcohol level that is not because of drinking alcohol. This is also going to create that brain fog symptoms. When you're really spacey, you could be dealing with just this autobrewery syndrome. In this show we watched, they ended up revealing the same thing. And it was ironic as we were watching it. It was, I said from the very beginning, I'm like, oh, he's got Candida overgrowth, because once you understand how the system in the body works, you can see those symptoms coming through, and his mood swings and everything his wife was describing. And then they came back to finally discover that that was the issue, was he had an overgrowth of this yeast. Remember, beer, auto brewery, right, is created by yeast. So his body was basically creating enough yeast in it to create these imbalances and become toxic. One of the other things that I want to go back to is that there is other byproducts from Candida in our body that you can't help but deal with. It's created from having the Candida overgrowth in there. Beta alanine is released when the when proteins are digested by Candida. So remember, we talked about how Candida actually needs to eat. And so whatever you're feeding your body, if you have an overgrowth of Candida, it is going to in turn eat off of it. And so you could be missing out on natural nutrients, healthy nutrients that you need, as well as proteins that your body is needing. So when the Candida is digesting the proteins, it creates this alanine. This alanine actually in turn lowers the amino acid called taurine in your body. And this taurine is really important. It helps for magnesium and potassium to actually get into our cells. And that helps to bind with toxins and removes them from the liver. Now, we know that the liver is kind of our filtering system in our body. So if we're not having the taurine, our cells do not get enough magnesium. I'm sorry. If we have, yes, if we have too much alanine and it's creating, taking over and we don't have enough taurine, then we do not have enough magnesium and potassium in our cells to be able to bind with toxins. So those toxins end up building up in our liver, okay? Then it creates an issue with our liver not functioning properly and can clog it. Okay, so it's imperative that you start to cleanse the liver and allow for those, because your body can't do it naturally because it doesn't have enough of the taurine. Okay, one of the signs that I've seen in helping people with their wellness by determining that there's a clog, so to speak, in the liver is people who suffer from severe constipation, irregular digestion, like that. They're not having a regular bowel movement daily. That can be a sign of the liver being clogged. So having too much of this beta alanine can also cause non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So we know liver disease is very prominent. And typically we see it in people who struggle with alcohol addiction. But because of the effect on the body, it can actually create the similar fatty liver disease that you would see in an alcoholic. So, I'm sorry, I need to back out of the screen share so that I can see who is, if someone is beeping me. Hi, Billy Joe. Nice to see you in here.
Hi.
So I'm going to go back into it now. Screen share, where did you go? See? Okay. We're going to get back in here. So how do we control Candida? It can be a little overwhelming and daunting, I have to be honest, particularly when I was looking at needing to help my son with controlling his overgrowth. You know, we were dealing with at the time an 8-year-old. Now he's in teen years, and it can be a little difficult. You know, they're going to their friends' houses and they are going to school and eating school lunches, or even if you pack the lunch, you know, they trade the stuff, right? So it can be daunting through the diet and the lifestyle changes. We know that they need to have good nutrition to allow for the body to function the way it needs to. One of the things that I encourage, because children nowadays and with our food options at the store, one of the things I like to point out is most of the things we can't even, you know, speak or say or enunciate or pronounce. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry. Pronounce on the side of a box or a bag or on any of the processed foods. And so when you can't pronounce it, you know it's not natural. So it becomes hard to, with our choices and what the kids are seeing, to have a healthy diet. So you really want to be able to supplement it through vitamins and other supplements. We'll get a little bit more into some other options along that lines. There are ways to use antifungal treatments using essential oils. You can use over-the-counter ones, but I personally, for my family, we prefer to use more natural ones. And normal antifungal oils are ones like lemon, melaleuca, oregano, clove, cinnamon, thyme. Now, oregano and cinnamon and clove, they can be what I like to call a little hotter oil. They can be a little bit more sensitive to the skin. But when we were helping my son, and still to this day, it's a pretty common regimen that he's putting these oils on the bottom of his feet. Now, what that does is gets into the body and penetrates very quickly, because the largest pores on your body are on the bottom of your feet. And because your body's really actually smart, there's a bunch of reflex points on the bottom of your feet that allow for them to go exactly where they need to. And being consistent with essential oils, just like you would be with an over-the-counter antifungal or a prescription antifungal from your doctor, is essential. These are not magical things. So my son needs to apply them at least morning and at night, if not morning, noon, and night on the weekends, to kind of keep that Candida under control. You can do detoxifications and cleanses. Regular cleansing of the liver, the kidneys, the lungs, the colon, the lymph nodes, and the blood and the skin are really helpful. I call these areas in the body elimination sites. I call them chimneys, because it's the way for our toxins to get out of our body. So when you start to see, children with acne or things like that, don't forget that is a way for the body to start to get toxins or excess things out through the skin. A lot of times we think of only the kidneys and the liver as a place where it's an elimination site. But, our lungs and our blood and our skin are also ways to get toxins out of our body. So some products, I choose to go through doTERRA. So some products that I can show you that we use for our family are on here. So by using a probiotic, like we talked about earlier, after an antibiotic, a lot of times doctors will suggest getting a probiotic. There's 2 probiotics actually on this page. This one right here is this PB Assist. This is actually one of my favorite products because it's so cool. You can see the little pill down here, that it is like a capsule within a capsule. So what it does, because we know probiotics actually you need to get enough of them into your body to get past your stomach acid. Because if you don't understand where the digestive tract is actually where we need them to be is below the stomach. So as you're taking a probiotic, a lot of people can take, drink probiotic or drink probiotic drinks, or yogurt's a really common one that people say, well, I eat yogurt every day, so I'm getting my probiotic. But the potency, which you saw on that level, our pH of our stomach needs to be at 2. So the acidity level of our stomach is going to eat most of those probiotics. So because these are actually a capsule within a capsule, this outside capsule will be the one that is kind of protecting the awesome, good probiotic bacteria in this little green capsule inside here through the stomach, so that this green capsule can get into the digestive tract. One of the other great things about this probiotic, and people may not understand that when you're taking a probiotic, they actually need what's called a prebiotic. So the bacteria you're trying to put into your belly actually really needs its own nourishment. So that bacteria, to grow and flourish, needs its own good form of nourishment when it's first released in there. That would be just like what you're normally thinking. It needs some good fruits, some good vegetables, some whole grains, some beans, or something. So for a probiotic to flourish in your digestive tract, you need to be giving it a good dose of good nutrients before it can really flourish. Again, the great thing about this PB Assist is that it already has the prebiotic soluble fibers in it. So if your diet or your children's diet, whatever your spouse's, does not typically get a lot of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans, which is a tendency to create an atmosphere for overgrowth of Candida to begin with, you can be assured that the PB Assist is going to offer that so that this probiotic bacteria inside of it can actually flourish and grow. So this one over here actually is the probiotic for kids. You can see it comes in little packets. My children actually love this probiotic. My youngest can take pills, but it's not his favorite. My favorite thing about this is it's easy and to get them to take it. My older son, he kind of rolls his eyes when I go, did you take your, probiotics? Did you take your medication or your vitamins, however we say it that morning? He rolls his eyes, but in having this little packet, it literally is like a pixie stick. So you literally rip the top off and they just dump it in their mouth, and it's going to help get that probiotic into their belly in a good, natural, healthy way, and through the stomach, through the stomach into the digestive tract. So for kids who cannot take a pill but really need this probiotic, and we want to offer it in a form that's going to survive through the stomach acid, this is a really great option. So this Zendocrine line down here actually is an amazing product. You can see it comes in an essential oil. It is the detoxification blend, and they also put it into a soft gel, the oil. And these oils are known to help with cleansing the liver, the kidneys, the spleen, all of these chimneys we discussed earlier, in a really healthy way, and create an opportunity for these organs that may have gotten damaged from being overly toxic to repair themselves. This Zendocrine over here actually is basically, it's superfood in a capsule. It's kind of cool what is all in there. And it affects all the chimneys as well, the ones that we discussed earlier. So it's going to help the lungs, the skin, things like that. I've suffered a lot throughout my youth of skin issues. And again, I was always put onto antibiotics. So again, then it's creating an issue in my digestive system, which in turn creates an imbalance and comes out in my skin. So it's this vicious cycle that I really wish more people could understand. A lot of times our skin will clear up if we can get the body balanced and get some of this toxins out of our body. So this Zendocrine right here, when I started taking that, I noticed a huge dramatic impact in the quality of my skin. Some other options to help control Candida. We talked about some essential oils. This is another list that you can see how long this list is. Some of them on here, tea tree oil. This is also known as Melaleuca, that was mentioned previously. So some of these you can find through other companies, and some of them you can find through doTERRA. This up here is actually the Lifelong Vitality Supplement. It contains both your food nutrient, your cellular vitality complex, and your omega. And in the omega, I love that it actually has essential oils in it. This whole set contains superfoods. If I got to watching a documentary called Food Matters, and they were talking about superfoods and how great they are. And if you don't know what they are, they're actually foods that are raw in sort, so your body can actually absorb the nutrients that it needs. And in these vitamins, it contains superfoods that have actually been alive within the last 13 months. So it is amazing for your body. And it's going to help reduce the acidity. So it's going to help create the balance of pH in your body as well. I absolutely love this pack. They do have a pack called a daily nutrient pack that it includes this EO omega and the food nutrient, the microplex. It just does not have the alpha CRS, which typically if you have inflammation, the alpha CRS is really helpful, which we know that Candida overgrowth can create an inflammatory response in the body. So again, having the full set in this one would be the best recommendation. Okay, so this one I really want to talk about for a little while, this Terrazyme. This is a digestive enzyme complex. As I've learned more and more about digestive enzymes, I've just been absolutely fascinated. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm kind of learning this as I go, and reading and learning. And I absolutely am blown away that if people understood how the system of the body works, we could help with obesity and a lot of other, hyperactivity, the ADHD, all of those type of things. But digestive enzymes basically help digest and absorb nutrients. Okay, so a lot of times in our diets nowadays, we do not get enough leafy greens. I'm totally guilty of that. Absolutely guilty. I do not eat enough leafy greens. I kind of like my bread, which is little bad, right? And my husband is a steak guy as a rancher. He likes the steaks and meat, red meat, right? And so in doing that, we aren't getting enough of the leafy greens that we need to actually digest our food. Now, I think I'm going to do another class potentially next month, or after the holidays, that's going to go a little bit further into it. But to give you a basic summation, is our body has metabolic enzymes, and they have digestive enzymes. Digestive enzymes actually are excreted by the liver and pancreas. So again, if your liver is overly toxic, or it's not able to function properly because of the Candida overgrowth, because it doesn't have those taurine, sorry. So it can't function properly, so it can't get you those digestive enzymes you need to help convert your food into usable nutrients, right? If it does not have enough digestive enzymes, it can actually go and rob from your metabolic enzymes to help digest your food, okay? Now, I was explaining this to my son, and it's funny. So if you're not eating enough leafy greens in your diet, and you're already dealing with Candida overgrowth, your liver cannot and pancreas cannot offer the digestive enzymes. So you're under double threat, so to speak, of not being able to digest your food. So therefore, your body steals from your metabolic enzymes. And when I said to him, what do you think happens to your metabolism when it steals from your metabolic enzymes? He just looked at me, and everything clicked. So your metabolism actually is slowed down when you do not eat enough, okay? When you do not eat enough of the leafy greens, when you're eating the wrong foods, secreting that overgrowth of Candida, and your liver can't, so your metabolism is slowed down. So again, when you're dealing with, weight gain or things like that, it does not function properly. So whenever we eat now, whether we're having steak, even if we have a salad with dinner, or maybe we went out for a family and got pizza, right? Again, we get the supreme, but all of the vegetables are cooked, and the digestive enzymes that they could offer are kind of killed in that cooking process. So therefore, we take the Terrazyme with our meal, or right before our meal, to allow our body to have the digestive enzymes that it needs to be able to digest the food and get the proteins and nutrients that we need from that food. Okay, so Terrazyme is one of my favorite. I personally like it for just the fact that I don't feel bloated. It also is really great. Overgrowth of Candida can create food allergies, or allergies in general, maybe even food intolerances. So people who deal with, lactose intolerance, or maybe gluten intolerances, things like that. I've personally just had those and dealt with those after chemotherapy created the imbalance in my body, and I've been using the Terrazyme to help with those intolerances and the effects that it has. So if I want to go out and have a pizza, then it does not upset my stomach and have that same reaction if I take it with the Terrazyme. That helps to kind of calm everything down. So the Terrazyme is another great way to help your body control the overgrowth of Candida. I always say knowledge is power, but then I came across this slide, and it reminded me that knowledge and action actually equals power. So hopefully you've learned something new throughout this class, and hopefully you're able to look at your diet for your family, the health of you and your children and your family, and see all of those symptoms and be able to know if what you're dealing with is an overgrowth of Candida instead of just migraines or just PMS or anything like that, and take action in creating a change and a shift in your family and in your diet and things like that. So let me get back in here. Hi, we had some people join in and I didn't get to see you guys everything when you came in. So is there any questions? You may need to go in and unmute yourself, and we'll take a couple questions of anything that's come up. Was it overwhelming of too much information?
Amy, so all the oils, the list of oils that you had that are good for us, would you put all those in a capsule or just keep putting them on the bottom of your feet, or what would you suggest for that?
That is a great question. So you don't need all of those oils. You kind of pick what you have. For us, the common one for my son to use is Melaleuca or oregano. We put them in a roller bottle and he rolls them on the bottom of his feet. We dilute them down with a fractionated coconut oil. So like I said, the clove, the oregano, and the cinnamon can be hotter oils and create a skin sensitivity. So because with Candida overgrowth, you need to understand it is always in there. And so it becomes this where it's growing and then you kind of control it, pull it back a little, but then it grows a little. And so you're always just correcting it just a little bit more and getting less and less in your body. So it is something that is something forever you will have to, work on it and continue. So you can have the skin sensitivity because it is something that you're doing consistently. So with that, I would highly recommend diluting whatever oil you use with a coconut oil. If you're applying topically, you can put it in a capsule and take it. Those hot oils can be a little warm to the tummy even sometimes. My favorite way to use it, honestly, is the bottom of the feet. Very rarely do you have any experience of the heat of the oil or the sensitivity through the bottom of the feet. One other thing that we learned about was that the fractionated coconut oil actually helps the essential oil to absorb, and you have less of the evaporation off of the skin. So incorporating that every time you apply oils is helpful. You do not have to use them all. Pick one and kind of work your way through it. Everybody's wired a little different, so whatever one works best for him and or whoever in your family, then you just work through it. So okay. You said earlier, Albina asked that I tested my pH. How or what did you use? That's a great question, Albina. So what I actually got online, and I got these little spit sticks. So you just literally spit on them, and it gives you like a color stream, kind of like we saw on that graph, and it tested the pH, so I could see what the pH level for me was at. And then we tested my son, and I could show him what we needed to get up to. And so that was helpful. And then understand too that your pH is going to fluctuate based off of what you're eating and how the overgrowth is going in your body. There's other ways to do it. The spit one is probably not the most effective, but it gives you a good home test and a home gauge that's more inexpensive because we were doing it quite often. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question, Billy Joe?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Amy, it's Terry. I got into essential oils because of Candida, so I love what you're sharing with us now.
Oh, did you
but
want to
tell me about
TERRA?
Well, I work at it. I have to tell you, I just came back off of a girls' trip, and I'm full of Candida. The eating the things you don't do. But I want to ask you about TerraZyme because I got disconnected for a while, and it took me a minute to get back on. Is it something you take every day?
Actually, I carry TerraZyme in my purse all the time. Okay. I put it in a little baggie, or I have like these little baggies right here. So I keep it with me all the time, and we dish it out every time we eat.
Okay.
If I'm eating in the car, you know, we're a family on the go. And so a lot of times we're eating on the go, or if we're at restaurants, then I always have it. We also have a bottle of this in our kitchen table. So we take it before dinner. And again, my bad thing is I usually remember that I need to take it when I feel really full. Because one of the things I love about it is it takes that feeling of bloated and feeling really full, like, oh, I ate too much. It takes that away really quickly. So when my husband actually suffers from, in the middle of the night, if he eats too late, he wakes up and he will start throwing up, or he gets that acid reflux where he's choking on that in his sleep. And so again, we give him this when we've eaten too late so that he doesn't have that reaction.
Okay.
So it's something that we take multiple times throughout the day. And I personally, on the bottle, it says you can take 1 to 3 capsules with meals. I vary it depending on how many vegetables and leafy greens I had in it, how much I ate. If I ate a lot, like during the holidays, I'll probably be taking 3. You have to vary it off of what your body needs, and it can take a little bit just figuring it out, but hopefully that helps you.
So I did the doTERRA thing that came through where you do I think it's a 20-day detox.
Oh, the GX Assist and the
The GX Assist for 10 days, and then you go off that and you add the next 10 days the probiotic. I kind of done that. I do it for a month or so, and then I'll go off of it. I'll wait a couple months, and then I come back on it and do it again. So, but I'm really interested in the Terrazyme Daily, so thank you.
Yeah, this is the GX Assist, and the PB Assist is a digestive cleanse, okay? So this is taking care of the gastrointestinal area, the colon and all of those. When you're doing a full body cleanse, because we know that Candida impacts all of the areas, this is obviously one that's gonna, like you said, you take this one for 10 days, the GX Assist, and then we know it kind of strips all the flora from our belly. So we go back and put in the good flora, like PB Assist. I have a great friend of mine. She does this monthly. She's a breast cancer survivor like myself. And she pretty much counts every month, the 1st through the 10th, she's taking a GX Assist with her supplements. And then the 10th through the 15th, she takes a PB Assist with her vitamins. And that's how she just kind of does it to maintain that regular digestive health. What I choose to do is to take these 2 along with the Zendocrine capsules, the Zendocrine, oops, I'm turning the wrong way.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, so this allows for the cleanse to also hit your liver, your kidneys, lungs, skin, everything. So this is like a cleanse amped up, so to speak. Okay. So this is like more of a complete cleanse, and then there's another piece to it you can add in with having the supplements, and then with also adding in DDR prime for a cellular cleanse to get the toxins off of the actual cells, because we're talking about cellular healing, cellular health, not just systemic. So these are particularly going into the cells in the liver, the cells in the kidneys, and helping them heal and become non-toxic.
So do you add the DDR prime along with that as well?
Yes, and there actually is a cleanse that incorporates all of those, and I can post that doTERRA put out. And it walks you through when you should be taking each one and through the phase. You don't incorporate DDR prime the whole time, I believe. I believe it was only for a portion of it. So I will try to post that cleanse to this Facebook event so you can access it later.
Thanks.
And I will say on that cleanse, that Terrazyme is consistently taking that throughout the whole cleanse, along with lemon in your water, because we know lemon in our water helps our body to detoxify. It also helps our body to maintain a good pH level balance. Okay. Is there any other questions? I'm so excited. I'm so grateful that all of you guys showed up. You have no idea. I'm super excited. I'm looking forward to do more classes like these. And these are going to be recorded and accessible on the internet, so you can come back and watch it again if there's something you forgot. I'm always here for questions. If you would like to set up like a personal one-on-one wellness consult to go over a cleanse protocol or something specific for your family, just let me know. You can comment on when I post this link, or you can also email me directly and let me know. I'd be happy to help. I love the knowledge that I have. I love the ability that I have to help my son understand his body better. Also understanding and helping him is helping me with my other kids who are moving into this. With the hormone changes in their body and things like that, creating a good digestive health is huge for them to be able to maintain a good immune support as well as a healthy brain. So thanks again for joining, and let me know if you have any questions or anything like that. Bye, guys.